For nearly 18 long years, one woman existed completely cut off from the rest of humanity on a desolate island surrounded by the vast Pacific Ocean. She had no tools made of metal, no family or tribe beside her, and no certainty that another human being would ever appear again. Left behind in the year 1835 on San Nicolas Island, she endured unending ocean winds, extremely limited fresh water, and the crushing weight of absolute solitude. As storms erased signs of the past and time moved forward without mercy, she remained unaware that she had become the final surviving member of her entire people. This is not a story about dramatic rescue or escape. It is a true account of endurance, memory, and the quiet determination required to remain human when the world no longer remembers you exist. The woman would later be known as Wana Maria, a name given to her only after she was brought back to civilization. It followed the customs of the society that eventually reclaimed her. Her true name, spoken in her native tongue and shaped by her culture, was never documented. It disappeared along with the Nicoleno people themselves, lost through violence, disease, and forced displacement. When she was left behind in 1835, she did not simply become a lone survivor. She became the last living connection to an entire civilization. At the time, she likely had no way of knowing this. What she understood with painful certainty was that she was alone. San Nicolas Island sits far from the mainland, about 60 miles off the coast of what is now Southern California. It is a narrow stretch of land shaped more by wind and water than by human hands. The island is constantly exposed to strong ocean gales and wrapped in frequent fog. Its climate is cool and dry, with little rainfall, scarce fresh water, and minimal natural shelter. Plant life stays close to the ground, twisted and stunted by salt and wind, while steep cliffs fall sharply into an unsettled sea. Survival in such a place has always demanded adaptation. Yet the waters surrounding the island are rich with life. Thick kelp forests sway beneath the surface, supporting fish, shellfish, seabirds, and marine mammals. Seals rest along the beaches, and abalone cling tightly to rocks in the tidal zones. The island offers sustenance, but only to those who understand its rhythms and limitations. For thousands of years before European contact, the Nicoleno people lived here with skill and knowledge. Life was never easy, but it was sustainable. They fished the kelp beds, gathered shellfish, hunted seals, and built seaworthy boats capable of crossing open ocean. Their isolation once protected them. That protection vanished in the early 19th century when Russian fur traders arrived, bringing elite hunters and a violent pursuit of sea otter pelts, with enormous sums on global markets. Along with exploitation came disease and bloodshed. The balance that had supported the Nicoleno for centuries collapsed rapidly. By the 1830s, their population had been devastated. The survivors were left vulnerable, economically dependent, and politically powerless. In 1835, Spanish Franciscan missionaries made the decision to relocate the remaining Nicoleno people to the mainland. Officially, the purpose was protection and conversion. In reality, the operation was rushed and poorly managed. A single ship arrived to collect the survivors. Chaos followed. A storm approached as people hurried aboard, carrying only what they could manage. Amid confusion and rising tension, the ship departed. One person was left behind. How it happened is uncertain. She may have been overlooked. She may have returned to shore, searching for a child. Later retellings added speculation, but historians agree the truth cannot be known. What is certain is what came next. As the ship disappeared beyond the horizon, the woman stood alone on the island. Some accounts suggest she was not completely alone at first. There are indications that she may have had a young son with her for a short period. If true, he likely drowned while attempting to cross rough waters in a small canoe. Should this be accurate, the loss would have been devastating, severing her final human connection. After that, there would be no one left who spoke her language, shared her memories, or understood her grief. The silence would be absolute. Survival under such conditions required far more than chance. It demanded deep competence. Using knowledge learned since childhood, she constructed shelters from materials gathered along the shore. One dwelling was built using the rib bones of a massive whale that had washed ashore long before. Driftwood, grasses, and packed earth filled the spaces between. Other shelters were lighter and movable, adjusted to seasons and weather. Each structure reflected careful consideration of wind, direction, exposure, and access to food. She crafted clothing from bird feathers and seal skins, stitching them together with sinew. Sewing without metal tools is slow and unforgiving work. Bone needles break, stone tools dull, and must be reshaped repeatedly. Everything wears out and must be replaced by hand. Archaeological evidence shows these items were made with precision and planning. They were not desperate attempts, but refined solutions developed over time. Her food came from both land and sea. She gathered shellfish, caught fish, hunted birds, and took seals when conditions allowed. Meat was dried in the wind for preservation, and gathering followed the rhythms of tides and seasons. Fresh water, scarce on the island, was collected from rainfall trapped in natural rock basins or stored in containers she fashioned herself. Through constant observation, she learned exactly how much she needed and how little could be wasted. The physical effort was constant, but the psychological burden may have been even greater. Complete isolation places a strain few humans ever experience. Without conversation, without shared language or social feedback, the mind can turn inward in destructive ways. Many who experience prolonged solitude suffer hallucinations or mental collapse. Se did not. Evidence suggests she sang regularly, preserving songs from her culture through memory alone. She spoke aloud, perhaps to animals, spirits, or simply herself. She marked time using carved sticks or simple symbols, creating structure in a world that no longer acknowledged her existence. These actions were not signs of madness. They were methods of survival, ways to maintain identity when no one else remained to reflect it back. Years passed. Storms reshaped the island. Shelters were rebuilt. Tools refined. Seasons repeated endlessly. No ship came. No rescue was attempted. On the mainland, the relocated Nicoleno people died within a few years, mostly from disease. Without knowing it, the woman became the final living repository of their language, traditions, and history. In 1853, nearly 18 years after she was abandoned, Captain George Nadiver, a sea otter hunter, heard persistent rumors of signs of life on San Nicolas Island. Curious, he organized an expedition. His crew found shelters, tools, and food remains, but no person. Only on their final night did they see her. She had been watching them silently from a distance. When she finally approached, she carried roasted wild onions as an offering. It was a gesture that needed no translation. Communication was difficult. No one spoke her language, and she spoke none of theirs. Still, understanding passed between them. She sang a song, remembered by one crew member, later interpreted as expressing calm, acceptance, and readiness. After nearly 2 decades alone, she chose to leave. She was taken to Santa Barbara, into a world far louder and more crowded than anything she had known for years. She lived with Nadeva's family. People visited out of curiosity. She examined horses, tools, buildings, and objects completely foreign to her experience. Those who observed her noted curiosity without fear and calm without bitterness. She did not speak of suffering. Her body, however, could not adapt. Accustomed to a limited diet, her system was overwhelmed by new foods and unfamiliar bacteria. Within weeks, she became seriously ill. Dysentery is believed to be the cause. 7 weeks after her rescue, she died. The irony is unavoidable. She survived 18 years alone in a harsh environment, only to die shortly after returning to human society. Her strength forged through deprivation left her vulnerable to sudden abundance. Before her death, she was baptized by a Franciscan priest and given the Spanish name Wana Maria, the only name history remembers. When she died in October 1853, she was buried in an unmarked grave at the Santa Barbara Mission Cemetery. No one could understand her language well enough to record her final words or wishes. The burial record simply noted that she was the native woman brought from San Nicolas Island. For decades, her grave remained unmarked. Only in the early 20th century was a small plaque placed there, a quiet acknowledgement of a life history had largely ignored. The objects she left behind fared little better. Many artifacts recovered from the island were destroyed in the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire. One of her most remarkable creations, a dress made of cormorant feathers, was reportedly sent overseas for study and never recovered. Her story later resurfaced through fiction. Scott Odell's novel Island of the Blue Dolphins introduced a fictionalized version of her survival. 2 generations of readers. Archaeological discoveries later confirmed many aspects of her life on the island. Whalebone structures, stone tools, and food remains all testified that she lived not as a legend, but as a human solving daily problems through patience and skill. Her story remains unsettling. It offers no comforting conclusions. It confronts abandonment, colonial violence, and the fragility of cultural memory. She did not choose isolation. It was imposed upon her. That she endured speaks not of heroism, but of refusal. A refusal to disappear simply because the world stopped looking. For 18 years, she chose to live, and that choice, made again and again without witnesses, remains one of the most powerful examples of human resilience ever recorded.